Hello everybody and welcome back to another weekly recap. In the weekly recap, I'd like to go over any news related to the old school RuneScape community this week. This week we did get a content update including some well-needed changes to the Grotesque Guardian. Also in big news, I am now recording on a yoga ball, so if I kind of sound like I'm oscillating up and down a bit, it's probably because I am. So besides the content update, I'm going to be going over any community news as well as anything else I think is interesting in the old school RuneScape community this week. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoy these weekly recaps, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. It just takes a minute and you'll be notified whenever the news comes out. All right, let's get started. Now, today's content update was called Grotesque Guardian Changes and Monkey Backpacks. It's a pretty small update overall, and it's pulling more things from poll number 71. The poll is pretty big, and this is only a few changes from it. It seems like currently, with everyone still working from home, we're just getting a very minor quality of life update every week. I'm glad they're still putting in the effort to make sure the game is continually getting updated. Okay, so for the Grotesque Guardian changes, there are a few things. The big complaint with it mainly is that the kill times are just way too long. So they're doing a bit to try to fix that today. The lightning transition phase when Dawn flies away during the fight has been totally removed, and Dusk will become attackable as soon as Dawn begins to fly. On top of that, the Grotesque Guardians are no longer going to be invulnerable during the transition period, and both of the Guardians are going to reach their new place faster and just transition quicker. So it's a pretty minor change, but we'll have to see how much it actually speeds up the kill times or not. Now, a couple of people were asking this week about the tradable granite dust. That did not end up getting pulled yet or passing. They still want to do more research on that. Okay, next up here we have Monkey Backpacks. Now once you've finished Monkey Madness 2, you can talk to a new NPC named Babawu, who's going to be located outside the Ape Atoll Agility course. And from now going forward, it's going to start tracking how many times you've completed the Agility course, and it's going to start awarding different reskins of the backpack once you reach certain milestones. For 100 laps, you're going to get the Karamjan Monkey. 250, you're going to get the Zombie Monkey. At 500 laps, you're going to get the Maniacal Monkey. At 1,000 laps, you're going to get a Skeleton Monkey. At 1,500, you're going to get the Kruk Jr. And at 2,000, you're going to get the Prince Monkey. But yeah, if you've already done a ton of Ape Atoll Agility course, well, you're kind of out of luck. And the final major update this week is the Lumbridge Anvil. Forge in Lumbridge now contains an anvil for lower level players to try out smithing. Now this anvil will only work for bronze items, so nothing above that. It's just a beginner anvil. Unfortunately, the Lumbridgians aren't especially technically advanced, so you can only smith bronze items. Okay, there's a couple minor changes here. The notable ones first up here are the Dark Mage north of Edgeville now has a separate stock of runes for Ironman players. I'm not sure if that's the case anywhere else, but that's kind of interesting. And beyond that, it's pretty much all bug fixes, so that's pretty much it for the content update this week. Now last week I was gone for the actual game update. I'm going to quickly go over it again as there's a few pretty important changes here. Now the Gauntlet is finally getting a few pretty major changes to it. The chief among them is making it a bit more streamlined and a bit, well, easier. The first big change here is to the Crystal Staff, which has had its max hit increase significantly, making it probably a more viable weapon. Filling vials and cooking food in the Gauntlet will now happen in one tick. Additionally, if you've learned the Barbarian Smashing technique, it is now enabled in the settings menu. Now the inner square rooms for the Gauntlet are now going to be a lot less randomized, making it a bit quicker and streamlined to go through. The demi-bosses are now going to be much easier to find in both versions of the Gauntlet, and they're now going to spawn in 6 of the 12 highlighted areas. They have now reduced the number of resources required to update the armor, front-loading the bulk of the cost to the early phases of the minigame, and not the latter. Now on top of that, the Crystalline Hunlef has actually had some new indicators added for their attacks, making it a lot easier to visually see what is coming. There's a new animation and a new sound effect right before it changes attack styles, which is going to make it visibly a lot easier. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the Gauntlet. A few other minor changes here. The Mythical Max Cape has been added to the game. You can now create the Mythical Max Cape by combining the Mythical Cape and the Max Cape. It's got a pretty badass name and looks pretty cool in my opinion. So there are a few pretty notable changes to the new death mechanics. Toxic items will now allow you to choose how many charge items to use when recharging. That way you don't have to fill it up to max every time. Certain keys are now automatically protected on death to ensure that you are not stuck outside of an area without a key. Ava's attractor and accumulators can once again be lost on a PVM death. Previously that was not the case. And there's been a few base value changes to change what's actually kept on death to items like the herb sack, the seed box, and the Eternal Slayer ring. Okay, this week we actually finally got a profanity filter for some of the more heinous words out there. Most things are still not going to be censored, but obviously stuff like racial slurs and other extremely offensive words are now filtered by default and you can't turn that off. Anyway, that's just a quick overview of last week's update, and that's it for game updates this week. Now, as far as community news, pretty much everyone was talking about Soulja Boy playing old school RuneScape, which I think is kind of cool. I always kind of get a kick out of seeing celebrities play RuneScape. It kind of humanizes them in a way. Do I think this is RuneScape's huge break? Probably not, but I think it's cool regardless. Now, one thing that didn't actually happen necessarily this week, but the VOD is finally up for it, is the RuneScape Battle Royale. I don't really watch much PvP, but this thing was so entertaining. It has pretty much like a dozen content creators participating in a Battle Royale, private world, all hosted by EVscape, so huge shout out to him. He put so much work into that video, it's absolutely insane. I think he put more hours into that video than I've literally been alive my entire life. But yeah, super enjoyable, highly recommend going and watching it. There will be a link in the description. Go check it out. It's like an hour and 40 minutes of prime content. Honestly, that's pretty much it for community news. There wasn't a whole lot this week. One kind of other thing I wanted to talk about, not exactly related to old school RuneScape, there's actually a change to YouTube coming that I thought you guys actually might find interesting. In late July, they're making a change to the ad structure for videos. You no longer need to have a 10-minute video to qualify for mid-roll ads. The new threshold is 8 minutes. So if you see every content creator now going down to 8 minutes and 1 second, that's why. Honestly, I just wish they'd make no requirement for it, or at the very least, they wouldn't purposely punish your video for not having mid-roll ads. I'm not sure how most people feel about it, but in my opinion, it's not really about the money, it's just about the visibility. If you upload a 5-minute video with no mid-roll ads, it 99% of the time will do worse than if you have a 10-minute video with mid-rolls. It's just the way it works. It's unfortunate, but I hope maybe this is a positive change and maybe they'll just get rid of the requirement altogether. Okay, and finally here, I want to do a quick recap of this week's Q&A. A lot of interesting discussion points this week. First up here, we are getting a new moderator. Their name is Mod Alina. Pretty awesome to see the team expanding so quickly. I feel like we get a new mod every week. Okay, first up here, could we get a new transmogrify option for the mole pet to turn it pink? Maybe you could pay for it with gold nuggets. Most of the mods really like this and they kind of wish they'd done it a while ago. Will you ever decide to continue the questline for Contact? It's kind of just a roundabout question on whether they're going to add Menaphos. They're not sure when yet, but they are obviously going to try to do it at some point. Can we get an update to Vorkath to make it in line with how Zulrah works right now? Where while you're learning the boss, you don't have to pay as much as a death reclaim fee up to 50 kills. They have considered it, but Zulrah was kind of an exception because that's the way it had been for 5 years. Also, Vorkath is much easier to learn, so it's probably not as necessary. What are your guys' thoughts on skilling pet thresholds? A threshold being once you get to a certain drop rate without getting the pet, you would have an increased chance of getting it. Not super keen on adding that. Technically, there is actually a threshold. Once you get to 200 million experience, you have a 15 times chance of getting a pet drop. Have you ever considered just adding a skill, but letting the community choose which one and pulling that? No, they wouldn't ever consider doing that. Will the July Gazette come out this week? I know it's going to be coming out on the 15th or maybe the week of the 22nd. They're going to have a much more clear roadmap on the updates for 2020 and when the releases are coming for the rest of the year. Could a quick travel option be added to the Spirit Tree? Unfortunately, there's actually no space left to add a quick travel option. Could we get the option to charge crystal weaponry or armor permanently, similar to the Blade of Saldor? They are considering doing something like that, but they're probably going to have a larger crystal armor update in the future, so they'll probably tag it in with that. What are your thoughts on the new HD clients? They do have a statement for that. We will be engaging with the HD devs privately. At the moment, there are no authorized HD clients, but stay tuned. Will you ever add the ability to auto-clean herbs similar to unfinished potions or anything else? Something they've actually been discussing a lot recently and probably could end up on a poll very soon. We've been getting a lot of endgame content recently. Are there any more plans for more mid-game content? Yes, they are aware of that. There's a lot of space currently for fixing up old content and adding mid-game content. They do admit that probably the biggest gap is between mid and end-game content, and they would like to add a bit more diversity. Can we get rid of the strength experience you gain from doing Puro Puro? Yes, they're pretty keen on removing it. There's no reason really to prevent skillers from doing Puro Puro. They're pretty positive about that. Considering that there is no RuneFest this year, when will the announcements happen? It doesn't seem like they're planning on doing a full online version of RuneFest anymore, so they're not quite sure when. They will come up with something though. Can you give us an update on what will happen to the Revenant Caves? They have decided what they want to change with it. They want to do it in different stages. However, they're planning on rebalancing the drop tables, which is probably going to involve making it less profitable. They might be changing the cave layout or making it above ground. But they're going to be going over that in the next few weeks. And finally here, has there been any more thoughts on making the Granite Dust tradable? It's something that we were thinking of doing, but ultimately decided against, as it would greatly change the meta for Slayer and could make the experience rates way higher. Anyway guys, that's going to be it for the weekly recap. A bit shorter, but well, there wasn't too much to go over. I still hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, I would appreciate if you leave the video a like, and I'll see you next time.